Hi, my name is Greg Perkinson. I'm lead pastor at South Metro Vineyard Church. We're glad you've joined us online this morning. Unfortunately, we would love to be together, but the current circumstances have made it unable for us to do so. But we are glad that you're with us. Over this past week, some things unfolded like I've never seen before as we watched as the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, was detected halfway across the world, and now has made its presence in our country, it's made its presence in our state, and now it's made its presence in our county. President Donald Trump has declared a national emergency. Our governor, Tim Walz, has declared a peacetime emergency, and our mayor in our city has declared a local emergency. And for us, there's lots of concern for the elderly in our community and those with underlying health conditions. And we want to do whatever we can to ensure their safety and also the safety of our community. We want to do whatever we can to stop the spread of this virus so that we can get back to life and healthy living, and so that everybody can have toilet paper again. We want to face this as Jesus would have us face this. As he says, do not fear, several times in the Bible. We don't want to respond in panic, but we want to respond in a way that we are sure in our trust and faith is in Jesus alone, and that he is in control of all things. And I do believe that God is calling us as a community to be a calming presence during this chaotic time. And we want to pray. That's the most powerful things we can do is clasp our hands in prayer and come to God and pray for those who are sick, for those who have been directly impacted, for those around the world who do not have access to health care, for those in the medical field who are serving patients tirelessly and working towards a vaccine, for the local, state, national government officials as they make decisions to keep us safe and healthy. And that will continue. The situation remains fluid and uncertain, and all of us are just really trying to discern and make the best decisions possible that we can make. As a church, we've sent out a couple communications now, one talking about where to get good information, how to prevent illness, and some of the precautions we were going to take or that we'll still take in the future as a church community. But for now, some leaders met this morning, and we had a discussion and decided that it'd be best at this time that we not meet in person for our services, and that we would begin to do what we're doing right now, have an online video with worship and a simple message that we can still be a part of. And we're hoping, as long as we're not meeting together as a whole community, that we can still get together and watch these videos and worship together in smaller groups. And that will be a strategy as we move forward, depending on how long this takes, how long we're going to have to do this. And again, none of us really know that. We have set up certain things, several things on our website where you can find the current updates, the communications that we've sent out. So if you go to smvineyard.org, you'll find good information there to stay current. Also, social media, specifically on Facebook. And we want to be available and to answer any questions that you have during this time. So if you email us at council@smvineyard.org, we will be available to respond to you hopefully in due time. We will be meeting on Monday night, and we will be considering and discerning again steps moving forward for us as a community. Because we do believe that this is a great challenge, but also with great challenges comes great opportunities. And we want to take full advantage of those opportunities as a church for us to grow and for us to consider what God is calling us to do to reach the 300,000 in our surrounding cities, and seize every opportunity that we have to become like Jesus and be Jesus to the world, which we have been doing for years. And that won't stop. So we don't want to panic. We want to put our full trust and faith in Jesus alone, and experience His peace that passes all understanding. And as we go forward, we put our trust in a God who does not change, who sees the big picture and knows exactly where all this is going, and that we can trust in Him. As it says in Isaiah 26, 3-4, it says, "You will keep in perfect peace all who trust in you, all whose thoughts are fixed on you." And that's exactly what we'll be doing as a community. We'll be staying fixed on Jesus, the author, perfecter, and finisher of our faith, the cornerstone, the one that we all love and know to be trusted. And so, and as Christians, not only following Jesus, and it's also, living that out in our communities during the midst of this, that we would not stop doing good. Christians are not called to be people who are selfish and that are hoarders, but that are selfless and that are sharing their things and their stuff to help people get through this difficult time. And we really hope that's what our community does in the midst of all of this. It's always been the Christians. It's always been the Christians in times of war or sickness. It's the Christians who stuck around. It's the Christians who, when the Romans would carry the sick beyond the walls, it's the Christians that you would find there caring for those who were sick. It's the Christians on the streets of Calcutta and all over the world that you would see that in spite of whatever sickness or virus or whatever it may be, it's Christians that you would always find there loving and caring for the least of these and fulfilling Jesus' great commission and His great commandment. And so we certainly want to set our eyes on those things as a community. In Matthew chapter 10, when Jesus calls His disciples, He selects them, He tells them where they're going and what they're going to do. He says, "I'm going to send you out. Preach the same messages I have been preaching. I am going to empower you," He says, "to do the things that I am doing. Here's where you go. Here's how long you will stay. And here's what you should take. And here's what you will do if this happens." And He gives them these instructions. He says, "As you go, proclaim the message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give." And that is most certainly all of us. Freely we have received, and freely He is calling us to give during this time. He goes on, He surprises them in this passage where He's telling His inner circle what to do, and we get some insight on where this is all going and the end result, and where He wants to lead us to, and what He wants to do in our lives so that we can be people who are fixed and focused on Jesus, that we do not allow worry and fear to drag us away in doubt, but that we can lean hard into trust and faith in Jesus. And he tells them some things, and then He begins a conversation in Matthew 10. He says, "I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues." And at this point, they probably were looking at each other like, what is going on? Like, this is not what we thought was going to happen. And He's given them a glimpse into the future. Matthew 10, he says, "On my account you will be brought before the governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles," which happened. Things they would see with their own eyes. It says, "But when they arrest you, do not worry about what you say or how you say it. At that time you will be given what to say, for it will be not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through me." And they're thinking to be put on trial, to be flogged, to be arrested. Don't worry what you say. And he goes on to tell us more things that would eventually happen. He says, brother will betray brother, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by everyone because of me. And he goes on, you can read the rest, and he gets to the end, and he brings them to the place that I believe that he wants to bring all of us personally. A deep lesson that he wants all of us to bring us to this place, this tension that we all have to wrestle with if you believe in Jesus. He says, here's all the bad things that's going to happen to you. And then he says this, he says, do not be afraid. Or in some texts he says, fear not. When these things happen to you, when things come your way that you might not understand, he says, do not be afraid. And he wants us to be a kind of people, and he wants to introduce us into something that we can go back to time and time again. And the thing that makes me feel comforted is that these guys did not get this till the very end, that they would waver. But he says, do not be afraid. And he says, of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And they just didn't get it and move on. It was an ongoing process, the whole idea of finding themselves in difficult circumstances, and to not let or to not allow themselves to be overcome by fear and allow that to take hold of them and to be controlled by that fear. And that's something certainly in our times where our circumstance may be different and the things that we're facing right now may be different, but the same kind of fear can creep in and can take control and lead us. And that's what we have to push back on. He goes on and says, are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? He says you can almost buy them for nothing. Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even if the very hairs of your head are all numbered. And then he says it again, so don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. And so we see Jesus here. He leads us and he invites us into this place where our confidence and our trust and our faith in God, which we've been talking about in our recent series, Walk by Faith, where our faith and trust in God is so strong and secure in the Father's love that even when we find ourselves in a place facing circumstances that make us question God, and whether he knows us and he loves us, even in the midst of darkness and pain, he says, so don't be afraid. I'm here. I am in control. You are of great worth to me. Now, the world is broken. And this invitation that Jesus extends to us is not just to follow me, because if you do, I won't let bad things happen to you. That's never been Jesus' invitation. But the invitation to not be afraid when bad things do come your way. In a world where sin and Satan and brokenness still reside. They most definitely have been defeated. And one day they'll be destroyed. But right now we're living in that tension of the already and not yet, that Jesus has come and he's coming. And we're waiting for the day where he will do away with all of those things, and that he will bring a new heaven and a new earth, and there will be no more tears or sorrow or pain or sickness. And we all wait that day. And in the meantime, we get to live this out, and we get to put this into practice when everything about us says that we should fear and we should let it wreak havoc. God's saying, no, do not be afraid. Don't forget about how much I love you and care about you. Don't forget the one who is really in control. And don't forget how in the midst of even those things, how I'm going to use you for my glory and for the well-being of people. And so that's what God is inviting us into, to trust the one who knows all things, who controls all things, who knows your name, and he sees your needs, and he can protect your soul. Even if something happens to your body, he will protect you and protect your soul. And I understand in times like these that people can get angry, and that's okay. Let's just say, let's give everybody permission to be angry right now. I know it's difficult. I have 4 kids. I've been sick twice in the last couple of weeks. I've been angry, and I've been tired, and I've been fighting fatigue and all these different things. In the Psalms, the stages of lament, it always starts with our emotions. But we can't let our emotions get the best of us and drag us away. They're God-given, and God's okay with that whenever we get angry, to share those things. But then it moves to asking God for help, the one who can do something about our situation. And then it comes back around in a lament of reminding ourselves who God is. And so that is exactly what we want to do. As we lament, as we struggle, as we wrestle with these things, to remind ourselves, as it says in Psalm 118:6, it says, "The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" And the answer to that is nothing. That there may be someone or something eventually in this life that may harm your body. Sickness may come, but they cannot touch your soul. And so we can be certain in that, we can rest in that, we can rest in the arms of Jesus, and we can lean hard into his love and his mercy and grace for ourselves and also for those around us. I love you guys. I wish we could be together. I can't wait till we can be together again. And in the meantime, stay safe, healthy, and I hope to see you soon. God bless you. This is my friend Vino Raj. He serves on the council here at South Metro Vineyard Church, and he works for our line of health group. And he is much, much smarter than I am and knowledgeable in regards to the coronavirus and the COVID-19 that we've been talking about. And so thanks, Vino, for joining us. One of the things that I think is really important for people who are out there with social media, that we're being inundated with all kinds of messaging. And it seems to me what I've watched on social media is people way over underestimating this virus or way underestimating it. A lot of memes joking about it. And so, I think, facts are our friends. And I think this is really important, that facts are our friends in this regard. So when we're talking about this virus and how to stay informed and get the best information, where would you point people towards so that they can get real facts and make good decisions for themselves and for their families?
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I think you made a very, very important point. We live in a world that is very informatic, and that also means it's overly informatic, where someone's opinion can become fast-spread fact. So I'm going to start off by saying I moved to this country about 7 years ago from Africa, where I did see 2 epidemics rather. This is the first time I'm seeing a pandemic. I would say, number one, yes, it's real. It's here. This is a problem. At the moment, it's a minor problem as far as what the present situation is and how things are being controlled. So number one, I would say trying to get the correct fact is really important. Staying informed and going to sources of truth. I would recommend 3 sources. One is the CDC. One is the Minnesota Health Department and the WHO. You're going to be certain what you see in there is vetted and true. And they're always, especially the Minnesota Department of Health, is going to keep updated with what is happening right now and what needs to get done. So being informed is really important. And then understanding that this is not a reason to panic, but be informed and be vigilant. So I think those are the 2 takes that I would say would be my recommendations, going to the source of the truth, and then not panicking, but being vigilant.
Right. And so, one of the things that I've heard is that this is a conspiracy and something like this always happens in an election year, and basically that it's bogus. And so I think there's a real danger in that, right? When people buy into some of that messaging that's out there. And so you really want to make sure when you're online that you are getting good information. The websites that Vino mentioned, we do have in the first communication that we sent out, and it's also on our website. When you were talking about there at the end about being vigilant, how can we do that and be preventative? As we try to live life right now.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said. Lots of information there seems to surround a conspiracy. Viruses are real. If you look back in history, this has happened before. You had the Spanish flu in the 1918s. That was a worldwide pandemic. Before that, you had the Black Plague going back and stuff like that. So this is not something like someone's making up or conspiring against. This is real. This has come about. The sources of where it came from, it's still to be discussed, but it's here. So what can we do about it being here? And I think that is taking good health measures. This is a virus, which means it can only spread from person to person through either droplets. So personal hygiene. I think number one is understanding what having good personal hygiene means. The best way, the recommended way, the CDC approved way is washing your hands with soap and water. Spending 20 seconds cleaning your hands inside out. If that is not available, soap and water, you turn to hand sanitizers. I would say it's not as effective as soap and water, but at least carrying that and making sure you're washing your hands. And the next thing is contact from your hands, where we seem to touch everything, directing it to your face. You don't realize how many times you kind of touch your face, and that's a way of getting closer to your respiratory system. That's how it goes in, that's how it infects, and that's how it spreads. So that is the second part of the prevention, washing your hands and then making sure you do not contact your face. And then you have kids, it's hard, but I think it's getting that discipline in, making sure you don't touch your eyes, touch your nose, touch your mouth, touch your face, basically, even preventing your kids. I have two little ones, 4 and 2. It's like herding cats with those two. So it's hard,
Right.
but it's going to take some time to build that discipline, disinfecting objects around you. Again, there are easy ways to clean your household where you don't have to go and hoard things. It's very practical, simple ways of getting that done. And then also knowing that if you do come in contact with said symptoms, fever, stay away, quarantine yourself. Quarantining means social distancing. That doesn't mean not being a community. You still can be a community. It's important during this time to really have a sense of community. I think it's two separate things. It's important that you have accountable people, that people can reach out. And during this time of quarantining, you're mentally going to be drained. So have this close communication. And that's why we want to be church as well, so that we can build that. So I would say those are some of the ways I would recommend. You have the riskier population, and these are people that have to be a little bit more careful. It's all to do with your immune system. If your immunity is compromised, that's when you're at a higher risk. So that's what you need to. So if you have cardiovascular diseases, you have comorbidity conditions, if you're in an aging population, that's kind of the big risk. So how do you help these people as well? So I think these are the ways that we can become practical in how we approach the situation.
And it's interesting how you're saying the awareness, because we don't realize, when we touch our face. Because I saw one of the videos of a lady who was actually, communicating some of the things that and then she, touched her finger and went to the next page. And obviously that became a viral video. But with some of the things like hand washing we were talking about today, because I've worked in the hospital and you're a physician, and people don't always know where, hand washing means all of your hand, not just doing kind of this, but front and back, fingers in between fingernails, that sort of thing. And also with kids, you bring up a really good, suggestion with them. Whenever you said you should lock them up in the basement until this is all over.
Because unfortunately, they are not going to stop going around. You
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
I was actually having an interaction with my daughter and asked her to go wash her hands. She went, put it under the water, and came out. I did it. But, so it's raising that awareness. What does it really mean to scrub your hands out?
Yeah.
And just having those communications.
Yeah, kids can be really gross for sure. Okay, so the other thing too is in regards to why cancel? It's something you really wrestle with. First, we were thinking, take major precautions, and then very quickly, following lead of others, we have two communities that meet in this facility, South Metro Vineyard Church, and then Burnsville, Lavinia. There's several hundred people that meet with those two communities, and just talking about the spread. The New York Times and some other articles have talked about what it, flattening the curve or pancaking. I've heard the same thing. Which one is if you don't make changes, the curve goes way up, and what we're trying to do is, level off the mass, connections with people. How will that help us in the long run?
Let me try to think of a really practical example. Say, imagine you had 5 loaves of bread here, and it's constantly being replenished. It's going to keep coming. And if every single time 5 people come and pick it up, it'll constantly continue a flow.
Yeah.
Right? But just imagine if 50 people run and try to stab at these 5, you are soon going to cause mass havoc.
Right.
Think of that same way on how the health system works, right? We have a functioning health system. I work in Alina in the research. We are trying our best. We're working at our maximum capacity to see how we can combat this. So with this epidemic spread, with this suddenly reaching mass populations, and what we see is only what is documented, what is tested. So what is reality is slightly more. And all of these people are going to come into hospitals for need, especially the people with severe symptoms. So what we are trying to do is, if we can slow the spread, the hospital systems are able to have enough resources to facilitate this need. So that is kind of the most simplest way for me to explain how we are trying to spread it. If we can't and we cannot help, suddenly there's just going to be mass chaos, and it's just going to escalate the problem. We're not going to be able to provide the need. There's going to be extreme shortage, just like what has been happening here. When panic spreads, nothing good comes out of it.
Right.
If we can control how these resources are taking place, how people are taking care of these outcomes that is to come, I think we are able to reduce the chaos and hence change the curve per se. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was really good, and I appreciate you taking some time to join us this morning and share those things. I think everybody's going to benefit from that during this time. Will you take a moment to pray with me for our church and our community?
There's one thing that I was with my wife this morning, and we were just having a chat, and something that came into my mind is the Psalm, Psalms 91. Psalms 91, if you don't mind me reading it, it says, "Whoever dwells in the shadow of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadliest pestilence." I think that's the message for our times.
Yeah.
That God's in control.
Amen.
If we trust in the God that created this earth, He's going to take care of this. So how can we answer the call to be His love to this world when it most needs it? So let me just pray, and then...
Amen. We can practice social distancing too. Good job.
Dear Lord, we thank and praise you, Lord. I thank you that I'm assured of the God that you are, the Father that you serve, Lord. I pray for peace during this time of a testing period, Father. I pray, Lord, more than anything, that your hands would be poured over every single person. Your love would be poured over every single person, Father. I pray, Lord, that you would give people peace, Lord. That you would give them peace, that you are God above everything else, and you are the healer, Father. Over and over again, you have mentioned the Bible, do not fear. And over again, you have healed, Father. I pray, Lord, that you would shine your glory during this time, Lord.
Yes, Jesus, would you strengthen us by your Holy Spirit? Come, Holy Spirit. We really need that. When we're battling with the flesh and the spirit, we need for more of your Spirit to come, that you would give us the wisdom to know what to do and give us the courage to do it, to walk it out, to say no to fear and yes to faith, to lean away from fear and doubt and lean into trust and faith. In these coming days, as things change and evolve and as there's chaos, may we truly be a calming presence in the midst of all this, amongst each other, as we just continue just to lift all of the people that have been affected. And again, those who are sick, people who have lost loved ones, people who are working in the medical field, tirelessly putting themselves at risk. Those who are the elderly, the people with underlying health conditions that can be more vulnerable during this time, people without health care. We continue to lift all those people up to you. And then the people who are going to be making decisions, we lift them up to you, that you would speak to them, that you would guide them, and that you would lead us through all this. And we do pray that you would come and you would eradicate this virus, that you drive it out, and that it would be done and over with sooner than later, in Jesus' name. And all the glory would go to you.